and today's session on Man Up or Speak Up is brought to you by Sthir. Over the past decade or so, we have been curating important conversations around workplace well-being and mental health. And today, we're here for yet another one. This time, we bring focus to men's mental health and how leadership creates psychological safety in workplaces and beyond for men to be able to balance their mental health and the rest of their personal well-being. And it's my great privilege to have with us two incredible panelists who bring diverse perspectives and expertise to this critical topic. Today's conversation with our esteemed guests will be a powerful one on how leaders can champion mental health, foster psychological safety, and also navigate their own challenges while empowering their teams. So without further ado, let's get started with what promises to be a super enlightening and transformative discussion. Over to you, Vedant.
Thanks, Aditya. So, firstly, can I just say that I am super excited to be part of this conversation because as a man and as someone who leads his own team, when it comes to the workplace, mental health is incredibly important to me. And navigating that as a leader has never truly been easy because, it's something that I'm fairly new at. So, to understand and get an idea of what I can do and what a lot of the listeners can do to to foster psychologically safe workplaces and ensure the mental health of your teams, I think this will be a fantastic discussion. So let's get into the conversation by firstly addressing the elephant in the room, which is that lately in the news in India, there have been fairly disdainful comments made by a lot of CEOs and business leaders about the importance of work-life balance, and the toxic work schedule. We've heard it, the 70-hour work week, the 90-hour work week, working on Sundays, et cetera, et cetera. And something that I noticed when listening to all these people talking about, how work-life balance isn't important, how it isn't Indian maybe, is firstly that all the people commenting are men. I don't think I have encountered a single female CEO, in India at least, who has been making similar comments. That is one. And secondly, what is really disturbing in many ways about what they're saying is how they're tying the toxic work schedule to a sense of national or civic duty. And in many ways, all of it seems to be stemming from a place of very toxic masculinity, which has almost corrupted what would have been a healthy workplace environment and practice. So I wanted to ask my two guests, how do we go about firstly detaching the toxic masculinity side of things from what a workplace should be and how it should be run to ensure psychological safety, and what tools we can look at to maybe detoxify certain workplaces? Over to you, and we'll start with Deepa.
Thank you, Vedant. I think the elephant in the room is a big one, and I'm glad that we are speaking about it the first thing. What you said is disturbing because that's been in the news all over the place, and there are memes, and I think people are trying to cope by making fun of these things, but at the root of it all, we all know that this is a serious matter because the workforce is big, it's young, and it's trying to figure out what to do because these are the role models. Now, the first thing, as you said, the elephant in the room, again, the word, I really like it, is when people talk about work hours, I'm just going to take it one by one. First thing about the long work hours. Somehow, the fact that long work hours equal commitment itself is a questionable issue. Okay, just because you're working long does not mean that you're very well committed, and just because you're working long doesn't mean you're really that productive. Now, if we can detach these two things and figure out that, understand, of course, because we all know that people have different paces of work. Somebody may get something done faster, somebody may take a little longer, but the number of hours you spend on something does not equate success in it or productivity. Now, these are the two things which need to be disconnected. And why? Because there are long-term mental health consequences of putting in measures like so many work hours, and that that itself becomes the biggest issue, because we do not talk about mental health issues on this platform at all. Like on most work related platforms, we don't talk about mental health. It's just one of those afterthoughts. But what we don't realize is that if we are ignoring mental health, which is part of the holistic health of a person, then your productivity is anyway going to be badly affected. Okay. Now we all know that we've heard this, and more often than not, that we have heard of people, complaining about burnout, people complaining about being stressed out, people having anxiety attacks. There are people who have their physical health affected big time. We've heard of very senior people collapsing and dying sometimes at very young ages. So these are the two things which are very deeply connected, and somehow when we speak about productivity in long work hours, we do not seem to take that aspect into account, which is equally true. Because I don't think in the history of the formal workplaces has anybody spoken as much about mental health issues and effects, and they keep coming up on and off. Or somebody commits suicide, and then you get to know there is a letter written by someone. These things come up too, but there is no connection made between the two things. So it's important to know that one, productivity does not equal long hours. You could be very productive without that. Secondly, there's a, and in this context, I remember an ad given out by, I don't remember the company, but they had actually gone on record saying that we trust our employees. Our employees are not school children who need to be monitored. And I think it was an interesting way of saying things, that yes, when people sign up to work and they're professionals, they will deliver. They just need to be told that this is what we need. Maybe we have more deadlines, maybe we need to put in more work, but putting it into a school kind of format doesn't work, does not help, and has serious mental health consequences. So this is probably the first part of what I had to say. Maybe over to Colonel Srini, then we'll together come back to how to address this.
Sure. Sir?
I think many a time I realize sometimes you should go first. All your points are taken up by the first speaker, right? No, not at all. I bring two different worlds of experience, the armed forces as well as 15, 16 years in the corporate. So let me give an example from the armed forces to equate this. The way she talked about long hours equals success. People take long hours as a badge of honor nowadays.
Yes.
Who can talk about badge of honors better than men in uniform? Okay. So long, I can't compare it. In army, is there a schedule which says, okay, you'll work from 9 to 5? No, not at all. My day probably starts at 5:30 in summers and maybe 6:30 in winters, and it can go on. Working long hours was not there, but a balance of long hours along with looking after yourself was very important. Physical exercise, getting to get together with your men in an informal manner while at work, spending time with them. It's a party actually called a bada khana, for example, where you are sitting with your men over a drink, and at that time we suddenly seem to be equal, and that's the time it used to release a lot of our psychological stress. So though we were up at 5:30 and going to sleep at 10 o'clock in uniform, whether in sports uniform or anything, it used to still work. But what I saw when I moved into the corporate was that on a normal day, it was who taps in first. Oh, yeah, Shini, you are the first one to come. Suddenly Shini feels very good because he's come at 8 o'clock in the morning and he's the last one out and it is taken. So, that I think was the first thing which hit me on my face. Okay, are they taking long hours as a badge of honor? Unless that goes, unfortunately, along with it, what people did not realize that it was impacting well being of teams. We talked about the second thing which you talked about was the leadership right at the top. But again, I want to bring in army, the leadership starts at the lowest level. A section commander or a gun, number one who's a havaldar is also a leader. He has to manage his team. Like that, it goes up to the army chief, right? So that leader also needs to understand the well-being of himself first, as well as the team men he leads. I use the word men because when I was in the army, 99.9% today women officers are coming. The first women officer is coming as a commanding officer. What a fantastic thing. Otherwise, who was the alpha male in the army? Everyone. You don't know. I could shout the loudest. But their experience, expertise, the rank, other things kept a lot of things in place. In the corporate, I could jump in from one company to another, suddenly come in at a position without the expertise, the technical expertise of a team, maybe, and then try to show my place. I think all this starts putting a lot of pressure, and it is very lonely at the top. The higher you go, the more lonely you are. Whom do you speak to? Whom do you cry to when you are under pressure for targets? I may have 1 crore, the CEO has got 15,000 crore to do. Whom does he talk to? That is another big, and the other thing is about wrong notion of power. Because I'm at the top, whatever I say goes. It doesn't go. That's another thing which I feel very strongly. These are the things which come first in mind when we talk about why then this toxicity comes in. Why do I have to show my power in this way? Is something which I have been thinking about. Do I have answers? No, but this is what I've been thinking about. Vedant?
So actually, two things that you said sort of struck me. One is that, of course, what you said about the Bada Khana, that all the soldiers and the Jawans, they having time to spend with each other and having time to just de-stress from what I imagine is a very stressful environment in the army, how that isn't there in the corporate world. That was the one thing that struck me. And the second thing was the idea that, even someone at a lower rank in the army can be a leader, or display leadership qualities in that position or rank. And it kind of got me thinking about how, in many ways, the army uh, almost promotes the things that the corporate world is not, because the stakes are so high. Having an army that is fully functional and not burnt out and not just on the verge of collapse is crucial to to our safety as a population. And also, the goal of the army is to keep making leaders, making the colonels, making the lieutenants, making everything. The point isn't to keep everyone at that grunt level. Whereas in the corporate world, it kind of seems the opposite. The goal is to keep everyone down while the leaders stay at the top, and the leaders get to enjoy the perks while the rest of them don't. So, in many ways, I think the corporate world could learn a lot from how the army does it, don't you think?
I think you're a little harsh on the leaders in the corporate. No, we need to fit into their shoes and see why certain things happen. But the other thing which I always felt is we can't copy paste everything in the army into the
Sure.
corporate. Okay,
Sure.
army is you join, and it is not that you can leave. It is your entire life.
Mhm.
Here, I don't like you. You're my boss, and you shout at me. I look for another job. Right. So what happens is that keeps me under in the army. Those things are already pre-fitted into me. So, and then the other thing is in the army we live together literally. The regiment is in one place. The officers' quarters, the men's quarters. We walk in the regiment at all times. Like I said, the Bada Khana and the guy who probably drives me knows my family. So many other things are there which are like a buffer to me in even in the most difficult situations. Now, why cannot certain things, or I should say, what can be brought in? First is believing that we only teams work. One man cannot work. Teamwork over hierarchical roles plays a massive impact in the armed forces. Let me give you an example, real life thing which happened with me. So maybe it'll bring. It was during Kargil time of Vijay, and uh, I I was in West Kashmir. I'm not giving more than that. And we had a very tough assignment where I had to take a section of mine into a small hillock to place it in the right place. It started raining and it became dusk. And since the LC was right across, we couldn't put on headlights. And then the convoy, in which one gun, which is being towed by another, the truck, as it started climbing, the slush came in and it started dragging the gun and the truck back over to the edge. So everyone jumped out, and I was looking. I was the guy at that place, the battery commander, and everyone was wondering what to do. Suddenly, my driver, I still remember Havaldar Sukhbir Singh, he retired as a honorary captain. He says, "साहब, रुको, ये ऐसे नहीं होगा. मैं करता हूँ, मैं जाता हूँ." And since he was a driver special, he jumped into a large 5-ton truck, gave explicit instructions as to who is to push, who is to stand, who will put chocks where, etc., etc. While I, as a battery commander, actually was watching him. Okay, what is he doing? Because this is how we promote the next people who is coming up at the right time. Okay, I am watching it. There were subedars there. There were other havaldars senior to him. He didn't take. At the risk of his own life, only he was on the vehicle. Others were all standing down. We started pushing the gun. The moment the momentum took off, immediately all others got in, just copy pasted that thing. And what took us 1 hour to cross 100 meters, in the next 15-20 minutes, we had climbed up. Who is the leader here? The battery commander, Major Srinivasan at that time? No. Havaldar Sukhbir Singh, without doubt. Will we do it in the corporate? Will we give, a meeting, say, okay, I think whatever he says goes, let us take it forward and run it then? Probably not. I don't know whether this is what you wanted to see, but this is something which resonates to me after what, 20 years, 15, 18 years. Yeah, still, Vedant.
And I'm hoping to bring Deepa into this because there was actually one moment in your story that really hit me, and that was, the danger to his life. The Because, and that was kind of the point that I was making with my previous comments, is that our soldiers, they make a mistake or they don't do things at peak efficiency. The cost could be not only their lives but the lives of those around them. In the corporate world, those kind of stakes don't really exist. At the worst, it's, the company doesn't perform well, the profits aren't, the bottom line isn't as strong, and things like that. So in that respect, Deepa, do you feel like, because the that kind of stake isn't there for the leadership in a lot of the corporates that exist today, do you feel like it gives them a sort of more gung-ho devil may care attitude in how they run their workplace a little bit? And in that it makes them feel a little more, we don't need to prioritize mental health as much, because, at the end of the day, the worst is just we make a little less money, or we have higher turnover, higher employee turnover, I mean.
I think that was, it was so fascinating to listen to Colonel Srini speak about this situation. And as you said rightly, in the corporate world, the stakes are different. Somehow, as they say, uneasy wears the head that lies the head that wears that crown, or something like that. The person at the top is somehow made responsible or told that they are responsible for all the possible good and bad that can happen. And that's how we see a corporate space. We leaders are showcased to no end at all. Every company is somehow known by its leader, which is both a good and a bad thing. Okay, good, because if the leader is a good example, then there is no way but but up. We've seen the recent example of when Ratan Tata passed away. The kind of outpouring of grief that happened among common people also was phenomenal. And when somebody goofs it up, then of course they get the brickbats. I think what happens here is that there is too much onus placed on the head, on the leaders. It may be the head of the company or head of the department, or whatever the system calls it, and that makes that person get into this do or die mode. for want of a better alternative. And then all your toxic masculinity traits kick in because you've been taught that, be aggressive. We know for sure that, I used to be on the panel for the management school admissions at some point of time, and I would wonder why there was so much aggression in there, um, in the group discussion itself. They're cutting each other. So it's almost as if that kind of attitude is prized. If you're aggressive, they call it assertive, but it's aggressive. If you cut the other person, if you speak louder, if you thump the table, if you, that's the way a leader is made. And somewhere I think this is the message we've given, and this is a message which probably worked at some point of time, but now workplaces are more toxic. I mean, more I'm bad in the word, have become more toxic because there is no one single story, right? Maybe it worked in a certain setup where the leader and the top management knew everything and the others just followed. But now we are in the knowledge economy. We have very intelligent young people coming in, joining as interns and fresh recruits. You can't tell them what to do, and if you tell them what to do, they may or may not agree, and they may not do it the way you want to, and then that's where the problem starts. To use an old method of leading for a new place of a new kind of work, I think becomes the problem. So when we say toxic masculinity, and I keep using that word again and again, masculinity is not bad. It's just the way we define it. Is masculinity is about leadership, it's about collaboration, it's about protection of the weak, it's about taking everyone together, it's about caring. But somewhere that's lost, and only the toxic parts stay. So somewhere we need to rethink that. Masculinity is not bad. There are amazing qualities that masculinity is supposed to have as. But when we make it like this, that's where the problem starts. We need to redefine that, and the redefining must happen with everybody in. It cannot be without the leaders being part of it. Is what I feel.
Of course. Sir?
Vedant, I had a point. Sorry, I was just thinking. The other thing which I realized was whatever you reward or incentivize, that works. Think about it. I have to drive sales because you talked about targets. That is the thing which came. I incentivize sales. So whoever drives sales in whatever manner is incentivized or rewarded.
Mhm.
How many of us are being incentivized or rewarded for great mental health in the team? Think about it. You said employee turnover. Has anyone judged a leader or a team head on how many people you have lost during the thing? How many people have gone on burnt out? How many people are complaining against you? What is the absenteeism in your place? What is the quality of your work? No, I have driven sales. He's incentivized. The day we start incentivizing great mental health at workplace under each leader, you will see a change. They will want to drive that automatically. This is what I feel. It is not about who I am. What gives me my idea of success? Success today is that. Success today is not about having a great team.
Exactly.
Happy.
And that actually leads me very well into the next question that I had, which is about, because we are talking about mental health in the workplace, and also that includes the leadership, of course, because they're the ones at the top, but they're still part of the workplace. And Deepa brought up the point very well, as did you, about how leaders are responsible for sales, how they're responsible for the bottom line, and how they're not judged necessarily on how many people complain and how many people are let go. And in many ways, that can also have an effect, I feel, on a leader's mental health, because they're responsible to a certain set of stakeholders. In many ways, it causes them to ignore other maybe to them less important stakeholders, like their employees. And that actually made me want to ask, since we're talking about ways we can make things better, how can a leader, or how can we install a framework within the workplace, within the HR, whatever it is, how do we install a framework that polices these factors, the judging the employee turnover, having leaders actually be mindful of employee turnover, employee happiness, employee mental health? What are the tools to put that kind of framework in place into a corporate structure?
Super. Yeah, lovely. Again, certain questions look as if you dream and get, this is a dream question for me. Employee surveys are the ways in which most people try to find out what is happening. According to me, till the time you do not create a space safe for the employee to talk honestly, employee surveys are a waste. Let me be that upfront. Okay. We definitely do exit interviews in. Imagine we do exit interviews. Who are the people who are exiting? Either someone who's so disgusted, and so during the exit interview, he pours out his grief, which he has not poured out in the last 3 years. And we say, this is a guy who's disgruntled, so I don't take cognizance of that. The other is a high performing, great guy who has felt not rewarded enough. I did not get promoted. I've done everything, but that guy, my boss is, leaning towards that person. And he says, everything is five, 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 five. And his exit interviews, I have no problems. While he's going out because there were problems. This is where the army helped me in learning something which I actually used. Instead of an exit interview, try a stay interview. What is the stay interview? Do it when everything is okay, not when everything is not okay. During the routine life of an employee life cycle, just pick up people every 2 3 days, informal discussion on what is going, what are your plans, when have you done any training this year, when did you last go on leave? Everything is there on the net. No, he should be able to say, is everything going? Why I said in the army it was a mandatory thing. Every quarter, I had to speak to every person, 180 of them in my team. 90 days, 180 people. Okay, my leave, this, that, 3, 4. When do we speak? When we are working. It is not on a day when he is not working, training on a Sunday. Nobody wants to come on training on a Sunday. Give it on a working day. Similarly, during work hours, we used to call. अच्छा बेटा क्या हाल है और कब छुट्टी गया हैव यू फिनिश दैट कार्डर और नॉट घर में क्या चल रहा है बच्चे कितने हैं स्कूल जाते हैं कि नहीं अगली छुट्टी कब जाने वाला आई गेट टू नो हाउ मेनी सिस्टर्स ही हैज व्हेन ही इज टू गो फॉर वेडिंग व्हेन ही इज प्लानिंग हिज लीव व्हाई इज हाउ इज हिज फादर व्हेन ही वेंट लास्ट टाइम बिकॉज आई हैव नोटेड इट डाउन समवेयर हिज फादर वाज अनवेल जस्ट आस्किंग हिम हाउ इज योर फादर was enough to make him feel that I'm wanted. Most of the time, we employees don't feel wanted. That guy doesn't know me. I don't know anyone from my workplace beyond my workplace. The moment we start doing these kind of activities within the organization, which is easily possible in a corporate environment, recording any HR just off over a cup of tea, formally, whichever way you want to do. But the moment you start doing, you'll start getting the pulse of the organization, the actual pulse. Yeah, I'm disgusted. Yeah, every day I'm working for 12 hours and still nothing is happening. Oh, there is something going on. If 5 people from the same team are saying there is something really going on at the leader level, when do you find that? Things like this, if you start these small, and this is not the Ramban, this is not the final answer. There can be new creative ways that this next generation can find out how the actual pulse of an organization. And that would probably help to encourage, the place to become more open. My thought.
Brilliant. And Deepa ma'am, what are your thoughts on the tools to build a psychologically safe framework for companies?
Yes, it was wonderful to listen to Colonel Srini speak about this. This is actually the most obvious and the simplest answer. And yet, as they say, the simplest thing is what nobody thinks about. People have written papers about safe workspaces, non-toxic workplaces. And as he said very rightly, are we having conversations? Do we know the people behind the employee? As we grow bigger and bigger, do we lose touch or do we connect in some way or the other? Traditional the earlier traditional workplaces used to have these fixed times when people would get their families and everybody would have, people would criticize that also. There is the same thing all over again. It's just an orchestra or just, but they were actually times which were marked for, community interactions. Now, I have not heard of that in the corporate spaces at all. I've seen that, in a family, people are different, working in different companies. They know nothing about that company culture, if at all there is anything. And now from this work from home thing, all that they do, and there are some companies where very young people also just work from home, many of them. All they do is once in 6 months, they have a get together in a very fancy place where they eat and they drink and they party, and that's about it. That's the first and the last time that they see each other in that 1 year. Now, this is very unfair because with hybrid workplaces, people are feeling isolated. Work from home is isolating people. Very simply put, and we all know this, that when during COVID, when we were working alone, when you're sitting in an office and working, you're working as a team. So you can just walk across to someone and ask something and get it done. When you're sitting at home, you're sitting there all alone and the pressure mounts. To call somebody means make a phone call or a Zoom call, figure out whether that person is busy or free or what. And then working in a team becomes a problem. So these are little things which just add up. So it doesn't have to be anything very big, but if a team is working on a project, for example, they need to have access to each other. That may or may not happen in today's workplaces. Then the kind of workplaces we have, different timings for different people. There are times when different employees don't even see each other's faces because they are on different time. Their time schedules are different. There is no space where there is a get together which is informal. However, run of the mill or rhetorical it may be, but it had its uses. So what we could do, and we've started this now, and I think it's important to mention this, we can formalize this, make wellness a very important part of your company culture. I know it's not easy, but we are starting. The 24/7 counseling line is available to many people, and many people are calling in because they may be part of a company, but they may be in remote, far-flung places. We're actually fostering group activity sessions, and people are signing up for these because in group activities, they may be structured, but people at least get to know what to do. One of the things that I do regularly is called the listening circle. It sounds very simple. It's derived from something called empathy circles, which we use in the development sector with people who are living with trauma. But in regular spaces, all we can do is have listening circles at a regular time. So maybe once a month or even once a week, if it's okay for people. We demonstrate what leaders can do. So in a listening circle, you sit together in a space where there are no desks separating you. You have a person facilitating and a topic for the day, which could be as simple as what do I do with my free days, or what did I do last Sunday, or who is my favorite author, anything like that. And then people talk. You realize that teams get to know so much about each other when they sit in a group situation and they speak about something which is not work. So there are ways and ways of doing it. I know it would be utopian to think that we could have these regular get-togethers where everyone would meet. It's not possible because the kind of workplaces we have are much more complex. But can small teams and slightly larger teams put it on their calendar and maybe have a coffee together on a Friday afternoon? Maybe just a 45-minute thing, not more than that. Maybe have a lunch potluck together and where everybody just talks about each other. And the only rule is that you don't talk work. It's amazing how much you can get to know another person by simply listening to them. And I think what leaders need to do, and this may help because it's two ways. Nobody's listening to the leader because you think, oh, he's the boss, he's got it all. He has his space, he can do what he feels like. No, he's carrying a big burden. He or she, I hope it's both. And typically leaders have nobody to speak to. And so do the employees because they just feel they're one of the cogs in the wheel, like they're just one of those things they're doing something which nobody notices. When you have these events, which are curated events together, and group activities are very powerful. Something as simple as a listening circle or a coffee is very, very powerful. You can start there. The leader will know what is the pulse of the organization. They will understand what's going on. And the other side also, because many times employees have no idea why the boss has just walked away and not acknowledged a greeting. Maybe the boss is under a lot of pressure to perform at a place where where he or she is answerable to the management or to somebody else or funders, I don't know what. So these are very simple techniques which can be internalized and which can be actually formalized. And for these kind of interventions, a lot of help is available. The EAP line is one, the group activities is another. And also, I don't know what happened to workplace picnics, very old fashioned, but a lot of fun they used to be. Maybe it's time to bring them back after the post COVID time and just get to know each other. It's as
I did,
simple as that.
I did have one question actually, and it's about one thing that you said is that the leaders, I can't remember if you said that leaders are supposed to have their finger on the pulse of what's going on in the company, or have their finger on the pulse of how their teams are feeling. But I don't know, like maybe it's just me, but I think that a lot of our leaders today, and this might be, the alpha male thing, just, rearing its ugly head, but I feel like it's very much the opposite. I feel like, because we're having so many issues around work-life balance and things like that, and all these leaders coming out and saying, I want my team to work 70 hours, 90 hours, do they really have their finger on the pulse of what their team is feeling?
No, they ought to have this. I'll give you an example, and this is a workplace that I was working at, and the leader, I don't want to go into the details, but the Zoom byline of this person was at work 24/7. And to set the record straight, it was not a man. Okay, it was a woman with the same toxic masculine traits that you're talking about. So masculinity is not necessarily only for men leaders. I have seen it enough in women leaders also, because they believe that that's what they need to do to be at the top. With a boss whose Zoom description says at work 24/7, what are the other people in the team supposed to feel? And this is the same boss who would send messages to people at 3 a.m. in the morning and ask them at 9 a.m. why they have not responded to a text message. Of course, the boss is traveling somewhere and they need to tick off whatever they have to do. But while they need to do it, they don't, because all they're looking at is what is the output, what is the outcome, and the process is somehow not looked at all. And at this very workplace, many people were leaving, and the boss would wonder, saying everything is so good out here. We have so many facilities. If you come in for weekend work, and weekend work was a thing, we serve you delicious lunch. And what is the problem with people nowadays? The young people are not working at all. So no, clearly they did not have their finger on the pulse. They need to do that. And by having finger on the pulse does not mean knowing what their appraisal sheets look like. It's about knowing the person. Many leaders somehow don't find the time, don't have the time. I don't know what their reasons are, but they know nothing about their employees. When an employee leaves, you only feel that, oh, we've lost a good resource, but have we lost a good person? I don't know, thinking about it. And I would like to say one thing in this context, and this may be, slightly, it may be a revelation to some people. People who don't care about others and who are hard on others are usually very hard on themselves. So these are people who do not practice self-care. These are people who have no boundaries between their work life and their personal life. These are people who think the do or die attitude is the only thing that works. These are people who only read success as, the kind of where the company stands or what profits they have made. So these are people who are difficult, who find it difficult to live with themselves. So we need to, look at that. They're like this with others because they're worse than that. They're living with themselves in a much harsher way. So this is the reality of leaders. They've done this to themselves. They are pouring, and the jug is empty, and now there's nothing more to give. I would like to definitely say this, and I can see Kanashini is smiling at that.
Sure.
I had a very humorous thing based on, sorry.
No, I was gonna turn to you because I did a lot of what Deepa ma'am said kind of resonated, and it made me think of asking you specifically, because you have experience with the army, whenever there is a mission or whenever there's, a task that needs to be done, of course, getting the task done is the goal, But then there is also that caveat of the no man left behind, the classic mantra of no man left behind, and that everyone should come home safe and sound. But in many ways, that toxic mentality of the corporate world is that, like Deepam said, it's do or die. You do it till you work yourself to the bone. And in many ways, do you think that kind of thinking is affecting the mental health of leaders, and that's trickling down to the men at the lower levels of the workplace? And how do we combat something like that, when we're effectively combating something that starts at the top and almost infects the rest of the organization?
Uh, that day I think I was talking to someone. I said, see, culture is driven from the top, revolutions are driven from the bottom. We want culture to be driven from the bottom. Oh yeah, you look after your mental health, but I will not be. I'm the leader, I don't care about it, but you guys should. But you don't say it out loud. So that is the best part. I was remembering a very humorous incident once. This was during I was a young major, and one of our commanding officers suddenly on a Sunday, how is the family or something like that. We were all in the office in a meeting, and he suddenly asked, how is it? What are you guys doing? Sir, what to do? Sunday, we are here only. I never asked you to come on Sundays. So, so everyone was looking here. And being a youngster, no, you have that little extra where you can speak your mind and somebody will shush you later, but you can. I said, sir, why don't you tell us not to come on Sunday? Oh, so he says, इसमें क्या है? I have never asked you. I said, no, sir. You say, don't come on Sunday. So the commanding on that. Okay, don't come on Sunday. Now, this was a Thursday, but as a habit, he would come on Sundays, right? On that day, when he comes in his Jeep, or not, he came walking from his house, the main gate to his office was closed. So he kept looking. Suddenly, the sentry came, quickly opened, and his office was locked. He says, कोई नहीं आया? साहब मैं ढूंढता हूँ. And suddenly there was a furfuri all over. Calls started going. His orderly came, opened the thing. Because that guy came, the Subedar Major got to know that commanding officer has come. So he quickly changed because he was in his pajamas probably. Sunday, right? He came. हाँ साहब क्या चल रहा है? साहब बहुत relaxed है. The Subedar Major tells. Acha, and then he has no more work because he has nothing else to do. He's a commanding officer. The work is being done by people today who have not come to work. Okay? And the information quickly spread. In half an hour, all of us were there. Oh, CEO aa gaye yaar, commanding officer aa gaya. Suddenly. And then he saw everyone there. Acha, call the adjutant, call this. Slowly, everything started forming. And then we had the tea at 10:30. And he says, I realized that all of you have come. So that day I had the strength to tell him, sir, you came. You don't come, none of us would have come. And believe me, it became a habit later. He says, okay, let us not come on Sundays. It is very important that the leader walks the talk. Our biggest challenge, what you said, was very important. I can't think of employee well being when I'm not looking after my own well being. How can I think about it? And then who do people aspire to be? I look up to my CEO, my head of operations. I have to be like that. I have to get that kind of position. And how does he see him? Working extra hours, coming early, going late, not caring. And that becomes my culture, right? What I feel is there is a lot to do. You can't pour like from an empty cup. So unless you do it, you can't. And you can't pour into a full cup either. How can you, a guy who says my way and no other way, how can you try explaining to him what to do to change? So it becomes very important that leaders are also told, dude, you need to change. Otherwise, the others are not going to change. You are the way to change. Basic discipline, non-negotiable routine for a CEO or whoever is the leader automatically peters down to the. I have had some fantabulous bosses. They said 6 o'clock, come, shut down, shut down. नहीं sir, कुछ काम है. I have not asked you to come tomorrow morning and show it to me. Is it something you have to show to me? No sir. Then shut it down. Come, jump into my car. 5 times he does it in 1 week. On next week, I don't do it. And I've had Was there any lack of results? 100%. Normalizing vacations, for example. Such a thing. I don't take vacations, so I don't like to give anyone leave. In army, it used to lead to overstaying leave or absent without leave. You don't give leave. The moment you start giving leave when men want, they don't ask for leave. They know they will get it when they want. Same thing is for your own people in the corporate. Give them leave. It is their leave. No, give them. What is the worst that can happen? You have 12 days of leave or 15 days or whatever. Finish it. That's it. You know, including, I think, while we talk about training and things like that, these training don't talk about such kind of, it only talks about it. But I think leadership also needs to go through. They need to have peer networks. They need to have friends and family whom they can talk to and let out. And that will get them some, it is very, very important. And most importantly, though Deepa mentioned it, I think respecting boundaries, yours and others. We don't. I love getting it. And this is part of our culture. I want to know everything about you, even if you don't want to tell me. Like that, I don't care. Time, your time is my time. Don't you know? I already own you, kind of feeling. That the day I get rid of at a leadership level. See, it is my time. I will not work beyond 6. Any meeting after 5, it should not happen. I had a CEO who said 10 to 11 on Monday morning is a meeting. 9:55 he'll enter. At 9:59 he'll say close the door. I've seen 2 people coming late, senior guys, and he says you are not required for this meeting. And he sent them out. Do you think I will ever come late after that? No, he drove the walk, the talk. I think these are things when you set in everything, including mental health, it will start petering down. All this talk, this toxic workplace, this, that, it will start because then he will want everyone to do exactly the way he does. And then everyone will aspire to be like that. And the whole culture will change. And believe me, next generation is not going to be like this. I had a lovely experience of working with 2 generations above me and 2 generations below me. They don't take it so lightly. They tell you on your face, sir, I can't come, sir. What do you do? Okay, what do? You say, see, as simple as that. If you try, I think it will be change. It will be gradual. I see these are small tools which can be used. Very practical, very simple, not very difficult. You don't have to spend money doing it. Huh? Like I know picnic will cost money. That is important. I loved team picnics. They made huge impact for me because I saw people with their families in a very relaxed workplace, in an environment. I think those are changes which need to come very fast. It's not going to last. And of course, our legal system or whatever, our laws are there, but implementation is not there. If they are, you say only, in my offer letter, if it is given you to work, your work day will be so and so. How can you call me on Saturday and Sunday? 5-day work week. You can't, no.
Mm.
Who is checking whether you have called me or not? You are my boss. Those are small things I think are important to also see. Huh?
And that kind of leads me into my last question that I have for you guys. And that is, we talk about, bringing back the company picnics and all the, all these tools. But at the end of the day, the thing that we're combating in many ways in the context of this discussion is very much it's the nature of being a man in India in many ways, because in India, men, there's still the traditional gender norm of, man being the provider, the breadwinner, the protector, all these things are so deeply ingrained into men old all the way down to even the youth today. The expectation is that they have to be responsible for the family unit that they will have. And as a result of that, the sort of long work hours, the working yourself to the bone, being away from family because you have to be on a trip, or your boss has asked you to come in, or your boss has asked you to be on a meeting, or what have you. The This is in many ways what we are combating. And I just wanted to ask, I guess a bit of a sobering question, because we've we've talked about framework, we've talked about tools, we've talked about things that we can do to alleviate the stress that men are going through and how they can improve their mental health. When the and I think that considering that we're talking with a former army man as well, is very relevant. When the enemy, so to speak, is something as deeply ingrained as human nature in a way, are like, would these tools really be that effective? And or would they be as if? What do you think about the efficacy of these tools? And more to the point, how do you think that they could be applied, and do you see them being applied, in the future? And what does that future look like for you? So we'll start with maybe Deepa ma'am with this.
And that's a good question. It's easier. Many things are easier said than done. As you said, that the systems are in a certain way. So it's nice to do wishful thinking, but what we are used to has changed for a reason and all that. I think it all boils down to, I'm going to get very, very specific over here. Many times, leaders, as I said, are very lonely, and they are the product of whatever they have been, however they've been brought up. It's a combination of your upbringing and your values. So maybe part of being a leader means, and this is why a leader is a leader, because they are innovators. They are people who do things differently. They're people who are not afraid of taking a step which is maybe unpopular, because otherwise you wouldn't do anything new. So can the leaders start with reflecting? Because I think, and this is what I have seen over my years of practice at workplace well-being, that those leaders who step up and uh, reflect and ask themselves, why are these things happening? To give an example, on our regular helpline one day, we had got a phone call from, and we did not know that till much later, till they acknowledged. A person called saying that I am in bad shape. It was a Sunday afternoon. I need help. I'm sitting in office. I think my marriage is crumbling. So luckily I was, the person who was around, and then our counselor had, escalated the thing. And I had a conversation, and from the conversation, we could make out that this person is fairly senior in their workplace. I did not know who that person was because it's anonymous. But the way it panned out, it was a panic moment, and they had called the regular employee helpline, and we took them through this. The person who had called had a very genuine concerns, which could not be resolved by one phone call alone, but we needed a longer counseling sessions to be scheduled. And this person followed them up very, very diligently. And I could see what kind of a person they must be at work, because very diligent, did all the homework, got into group calls as and when required. This went on for several weeks, and things got better. And then this person actually, they got back to us saying that, okay, I'm so and so. They were actually the head of that organization, and they were so, one never knows. People can try to see whether this thing is working well or not, but they actually acknowledge. So what happened, why I want to highlight this is that each leader is a human being first. Are you able to reflect? Are you able to figure out what's happening in your life? Because this person was extremely successful, but because of his behavior and his timetables and whatever else he was doing, anger issues and whatever were an outcome of the work, the marriage and the family was, literally falling apart. And then this person took a moment away to reflect and actually followed through what, as a counselor, I spoke and really followed it through and saved things. And now I'm sure they're a different, because they said they're a different leader now. They realized that if they have issues which they were not aware of, maybe other people do also, and they need to reflect. So basically, vulnerability. It's important to be vulnerable if you are tuned into yourself, if you're reflective enough, if you're vulnerable enough, you will know that nobody's life is perfect. Because you do something, you see, we all have 24 hours in a day and so much time. So if you're going to give 20 hours to your work, then there's nothing left for your family, So anybody, whether you're a leader or a prime minister or anybody else, you only have that much time. So are you able to reflect on that? Are you able to be vulnerable when it is required? Are you able to follow, seek help when it's required, because that was important too. This person sought help, and did that time the head or whoever he was did not come into play. So all these qualities, if people actually, on an individual level, if the leaders adopt, that will be good. And again, I want to come back, and this is going a little longer, but I need to say this, that um, we are also the product of our upbringing. As I said, if we have not seen any other way but this, we are not able to, like, as I say, parents, parents, we always like to blame parents for this and that. Parents have no training as for parents. So a leader is a product of his or her society, and they've come from whatever values they've been given. They don't know any different. So if it's an intelligent leader, emotionally intelligent leader, they would tune into themselves, and very importantly, practice self-care, seek help when required, and make the changes, knowing that your work is not your entire life. One day you're going to retire, and then you're going to be left with nothing. And then some people are depressed after the work is over because there's nothing to do. So all these things, if you take into account, it's not such an impossible situation. They're human beings. uh, the toxicity comes out of low self-love and low self-reflection and no self-care. So if all these things fall into place, they learn to nurture themselves, they learn to look after themselves, love themselves more than being who they are, just a function, for profit or productivity. They'll be able to look at the people also like that. So on an individual level, yes, I will call out to leaders that take some time off, seek help if required, reflect a little bit. You know the answers. You just have to have the courage to be able to speak out and say that I need to do something different. This is what I would like to say.
Brilliant. And Srini, sir?
Vedant, I'm seeing it really at the bottom. Okay. I want to start at that individual level. Do leaders see each one of the people whom they are working with as human beings or machines? This human being comes from the day, when he was born, with what you said as fixations. Boys don't cry like a girl. Those kind of things they come up with. Allow them. I think the more our women are getting educated, the more they are going out and are, there is nothing called equal. This acceptance itself is very important. They are different. That's the first thing that you have to understand. The mothers will change the way the sons work. This masculinity will change. It is, I'm seeing it at home. I've got a daughter and a son, both married, gone. I'm seeing it. Both had to do both the type of work. There's nothing. The son lands up making breakfast while the daughter takes the scooter to buy. It's a totally different thing. That is one. Be strong and all that. Limited vocabulary. People don't allow people to be sensitive about themselves. Where is it? No feelings. Boy cannot show feelings. Nothing. The moment the parents, both of them, start helping their child express their feelings at home, these people will see other human beings as human beings. Otherwise, they think we are made of rock and everyone else is like. The other thing is by reinforcement by society. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, reinforcement by society. Everyone thinks Arnold Schwarzenegger, two machine guns, I am back kind of stuff. No, no, it is not like that. That is not the real army, right? So everyone thinks army guys are like that. I'm just giving an example. No, the army guy is also a human being. My Subadar major was older than my father. And he carried my luggage when the first day when I came, because the vehicle didn't come for the second Lieutenant Srinivasan. It came for the Subadar major, sir. He saluted me. He carried me and he was older than my father. The amount of respect for Subadar Major Moti Singh even today, after 40 years, is this. He was my sign of a great leader. You know, these so many things that continue. Imagine that the people who are you're working with have a family. So show empathy. He has a family too. You don't have probably, but he has. Think about it. Elders, the respect people who are there are people who are probably older than you who have got elderly parents at home. Think about them. That is why he's late, because he's taken his mother to the doctor and you shout at him that you're coming late. Do you know about that? You don't know. I am seeing that women will make a big change into this. The more we are educated, they will bring that kind of change which we are looking for. The other small things is delegation. I have to take it out of me. My worry that my position will go because I give something to someone else. The moment you empower your team, you start giving away, you have more time for yourself to think about bigger things and more time for yourself. I have to get those. We have got training sessions on delegation, but who is actually applying it at workplace is something which you need to see. So those kind of small things, I personally feel, will start making changes. It is making a change. Otherwise, this talk wouldn't have happened at all. Do you think it would have happened? If people are not able to see, I'm assuring you, there will be so many people who would probably nod and say, "Yeah, this is doable." That's all I'm saying. There is no big answer book which says ki this is the way you have to be. First, be a human being. Treat others as human beings. Imagine them that they are with a family, they have a life, everything as leaders. The moment I start thinking, and then whoever, I may be a leader of only 3 people, but I bring that small change. Don't attempt to change the world. No, our biggest challenge is let us change the complete organization. No, change it in your team. Some friend of yours will see and he says, यार तेरी टीम बड़ी खुश नजर आ रही है, मैं भी करता हूँ. It starts and then it slowly grows and it's very contagious. Everyone loves happiness, right? When they see someone else happy, they wonder how he is happy. And if they copy and in such kind of things, it will grow. I promise you it will grow. I'm not going to go back. I'm retired. I'm sitting at home. Every day is a Sunday for me. But can we bring that kind of thought in our lives? Ki I can be relaxed instead of pushing people to the edge wherein we have to talk about our mental health. No, I think we can come back to peace within ourselves very easily. There's my 2 bits.
Brilliant. Well, fingers crossed that, the change that we have discussed, hopefully that happens sooner rather than later. And I think with that, we've reached the end of our time. I just wanted to say a big thank you to both of you for your insights, your wisdom, your different perspectives on things. For me, it has been truly an illuminating experience. And I hope it was a similarly illuminating experience for all the people listening. And so thank you for your time, for sharing everything with me and everyone else. And also, I just wanted to say thank you to Aditi and Sthir for making this conversation happen, because I think it is deeply, deeply important that we continue having such conversations.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Vedant. You made us
Thank you.
think.
Yes, and for the very sensitively articulated questions. It's very easy to get into people are angry, and to be able to articulate it well enough that we get a sensible conversation, because there's a lot of anger about what's going on. So thank you for doing that.
I think that was the hardest part, to keep the anger out of it.
And you've done a great job. Thank you.
Thank you so much to all 3 of you for your time, and a huge thanks to all of our audience for joining us on this Wednesday afternoon. Please do keep the conversation going. As we always say at Sthir, these conversations are just getting started. The reason why we're having this LinkedIn Live is so that this is just a prompt for us to take this conversation back to our circles, to our organizations, and take this forward. And obviously, source as many perspectives and ideas and feedback from the people that we work with, so that this becomes more of a norm to talk about mental health just in general, so that one day it doesn't have to be just isolated to men's mental health, but psychological safety in general. So thank you so much, Srini, Deepa, for being here, and a huge thanks to Vedant, my dear friend. Thank you so much for being here today. And I'm looking forward to having you over for future sessions as well. Have a great afternoon, and namaste from Sthir.